Hello and welcome to our Fusion Signage demo. My name is James Ingram, I'm the co-owner and managing director of Fusion Signage, and I'm here today to showcase the entire platform from start to finish and show all the tips and tricks to get the most out of our solution. One of the major questions that we first get is, which license type do I need? Obviously there's three different license types that we have within the platform, and all will come with different features and functionality. On our main Fusion Signage website, you can navigate to our pricing tab at the top, and if you scroll down, you'll see the three license types here between Basic, Advanced, and Pro, as well as our pricing for each of those licenses. On the left, you can choose annual, 3-year, and 5-yearly, and this will just give you an idea of our costs when choosing between the license types. If you scroll down, you'll be able to see what's included within each of the different license brackets and make a decision based on what your company actually requires. Our most common license would be our advanced license, and that's just because it comes with things like the designer, which allows you to create content within the platform, as well as scheduling to change content based on time of day. If you are price conscious, then our basic license is a great way to start. It basically just replaces USB sticks so you can update your content remotely, but doesn't have the content creation capabilities as well as the ability to schedule content. If you are a larger organization, our Pro license basically has every feature that we have within the platform, and that gives you access to things like our tagging system as well as our location systems, some of our more advanced integrations, and things like single sign-on. So have a look at this and go through the page, but I'll be showing you all of the features within our demo very soon. If you haven't already, feel free to sign up to a free trial on our main website. Just go to fusionsignage.com.au and you'll see this blue box in the top right hand corner that says try for free. You can click on this, fill out the details, and then you'll be given a 21-day free trial which gives you access to everything that I'm going to show you. If you already have an account, then feel free to log in on our page, up here under sign in, log in with your details, and then you'll be able to access your portal. Once you're logged in, you're going to see your dashboard. So the dashboard gives you a high-level overview of your entire account. At the top, you'll have a banner which showcases any of the new features that we've added, or giving us feedback and getting involved in the marketplace and some demos. Down below, we have three main pillars within Fusion Signage. First and foremost, we have content, and content for us is images and videos that you may create yourself externally and then upload into the account, as well as designs, which is part of our Advanced and Pro licenses, allowing you to create content directly within the platform. Once you have your content within the platform, you can then add it into a playlist. And a playlist is just where you put your media and say, this is the content that I'd like to deploy to one or more screens. So you can have a playlist based on the type of content that's being deployed, for example, the morning breakfast schedule or going to specific screens, so all of my menu screens. Really just create it to whatever suits your business. Once you have a playlist, you can then add those into a schedule and then change your content based on time of day. So schedules just allow you to say, I'd like something to play something on a Monday versus a Friday. So those three elements are the three main components, and if you can understand those, you've pretty much understood how Fusion Signage works from start to finish. On the far right, we also have some information about your licenses and your screens. So as a cloud-based solution, you do require an internet connection on your devices in order to update your content. However, if the device actually disconnects from the internet for some reason, it will cache all of its media and content, so it won't lose that data and it'll continue to play even though it isn't connected. But if you do want to send new content, you'll have to make sure that the device is online. So this is here showing you how many of your devices are actually online. Ideally, we want to see 100% here, but I do have some dummy screens for the purposes of this demo on here. Below that, you'll also see the licenses, and the number of licenses you have also gives you access to additional storage and bandwidth depending on your license type. Typically, once you get past one license, these things don't really matter because most images and videos are quite small anyway. Bandwidth just accounts for the amount of media that you upload into your account, and this resets every month. So keep in mind, the more licenses you add, the more storage and bandwidth you will have access to. On the left, you'll see our menu structure. So it starts at the top with the dashboard, goes down to the designer, into the manage section, and then to the deploy section. The next up will be the designer. So the designer gives you access to content creation within the Fusion Signage platform. If you have your own content creation skills and you have our advanced or pro licenses, you'll be able to access this feature to create content yourself. If you're not really that savvy when it comes to content creation like myself, we do have access to a marketplace. So at the top, you'll see My Templates, which are templates that you've perhaps created or already purchased, or our marketplace, which allows you to purchase our professionally built designs that allow you to get up and running on your screens as soon as possible. So the designs that you see in here are all available for purchase and the price is indicated below it. We do have landscape and portrait options, and you can filter the marketplace here to suit your needs between different categories as well as pricing. Once you go through and find something that you like the look of, you can preview it and see some information about it and see what that content is actually going to give you. So this is just a pre-built layout which says this menu board can then be edited to suit your actual business needs. The good thing is once you purchase this, it is yours forever and you can make as many customizations or duplications as you want. So feel free to have a look here if you want to just make sure your screen looks as good as possible once they're installed. Going back to the My Template section, this is where the power of the designer comes into play. So if you don't want to purchase something or you just want to get started yourself, you can click on the Create a Design from Scratch. Within here, you have a bunch of options. First, you can give your design a name. So let's just call this a burger special. And from here, you can choose the type. So the type is either going to be a normal or an overlay, and this just allows you to choose between creating a design, which allows content creation within the platform, or an overlay, which will sit on top of any content you put in the playlist, and I'll explain the overlay shortly. Then you have your orientation. So orientation will depend on how your screen has actually been installed, and it's either going to be landscape or portrait, or you can have a custom orientation as well if that content is in a different resolution. Down below you have a couple of tabs. First and foremost is the My Templates. So if you've created anything or purchased something, you can use it from here as a starting point. Otherwise, you can just use some of our pre-built layouts in here in order to get started with a design that looks good. So we have a hero message, a half and half, a special features, a menu, and a dashboard example. I'm just going to start completely from scratch, but I'll showcase some of these as part of it. So let's click on the blank design and go into our designer. So from here, we now have the option to start adding some elements. So you'll notice at the top we have some settings, we can save it, we can choose between the different options in here to change between overlay and change our resolution. We can view the usage if we publish this over to a screen already, and we can also download the design as an image if you want to use this on other platforms. Under the add, you'll see all of the elements that you have access to, text fields which allow you to put in a text field and then edit it. So we'll put this in here and we'll call it a burger special, for example. And then as you're editing this text, you can see at the top you can upload your own fonts. You can choose from any of the Google fonts that we already have access to. You can change the weighting if it's available, the font size, so we can make this slightly bigger if we need to. Whoop, way too big. See, I'm not a designer. And then resize the box to make it look a little bit more appealing. You have color, opacity, and border styles as well, so feel free to have a play around with this. From there, you can add in images. So images allow you to upload your own images or use the images that have been previously uploaded into the account. If you do have images that are on your computer, you can upload those directly from here. So for example, I have some images that I'm going to drag in. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. I can drag those directly in over here, upload those files into the media library. So now these are available. Now what we're going to do is use this burger image that I've got in order to make this look like a nice little special. One note as well is if you don't have your own imagery, you can use Unsplash, which is connected directly into the platform. So Unsplash actually gives you access to over 1 million free to use stock images. So you could search for a burger, for example. They're all professionally designed, and then you can choose one in here that suits your exact needs. So keep that in mind, because when I select using the template, you can then place this wherever you need to. Obviously, this isn't going to be cut out like this nice image that I have here, but it definitely will make your designs look a lot better. So then we can add additional images in. So now that I've uploaded those, I can use the burger wrap one as well. And we're just going to create a nice little layout here. Send this to the back, shrink this down a little bit, and you can start to see how quickly we can design something that looks quite nice. But the background is currently white, so what do we want to do? So on the left over here under the background option, we have the option between normal and video. So in here I'm going to choose from my media library. I already have a nice little background here that looks nice and wood, and this now is starting to come together as a nice burger special. But now we need to say how much is the burger special? Well, we can change this, copy and paste it, and say I'd like this to be $19, for example. Again, we can use this to resize and make the font look a little bit bigger. Let's make it a little bit smaller actually. And then we can move down. So we can add lines in as well. So let's say we want to put a nice line in here, change it to a double line and make it a little bit bigger. And as you can see, you've got pretty good power over making this look half decent. If you do have video content as well, you can upload videos and add those in. I'm not going to do that at the moment, but keep in mind that most devices only do support a single video file. So have a play around and make sure your devices and check what your device can actually support. Shapes as well, so let's say we wanted to put a nice little circle behind this pricing. I could create a circle, send it to the back, and then make it a slightly whiter color. But let's say we had a video background as well. So if we said maybe we don't want this to be a static image, we had some animation capabilities. Instead of having this as an image, I could remove this and put a video on it. I've uploaded a previous file which has the video rendered into it, which now has the burger moving in behind it. So now all the text fields and the shapes will sit on top of that, but the video file sits in the background. Let's say we're happy with this burger special. Let's hit save. It's called burger special, and now I can choose a folder. So I've created a designs folder in my manage section. And if I wanted to as well, I could create this as a template. So basically this means I'm happy with the state of this. I want to create it as a design, which I can put onto my playlist, but I also want to create it as a template, which I can then use as a starting point later. So I'll show you how that comes into play. So once we hit save, now this design has been saved, and then we can go back into the manage section, which I'll show you in a second, and assign it into a bunch of playlists. So the dynamic widgets allow us to add extra information. So let's go back to our design section, and now you'll see we have this brand new design here that we've created as a template, which is a starting point that we can use to create something from the future. But let's go into the new designer and go into our dashboard down here, create this, and what we can see is that there's actually a few widgets already assigned here. So this has got a clock widget, it has the date, and it has the weather, as well as a news RSS feed. The clock widget and the date, as well as the weather, all have the same font changing capabilities as you would expect for text fields, but the device is actually pulling through this time itself. So you could deploy this out to screens that are all over the country, and that's going to pick the local device time and update correctly. The weather, however, is based on a specific area, so you'll need to choose that from the drop down. So just keep that in mind at this stage. We are looking to make that dynamic at some point in the future, but for now it is just a manual process. News and RSS, basically if you have an RSS feed coming from a newspaper, you can use that as well. Just put the XML feed in up there and it will update that content on the screen. Other widgets we have is a countdown widget. So if you want to say, I want to count down until the end of August, for example, you can put that in, specify a date, and then it will count down. The HTML allows us to do integrations into a lot of different back-end systems. So if you have some website that you maybe want to pull some code from, we can look to use the HTML code to do that. Image slideshow is just a rotation of images. Website allows you to embed a website as long as it's iframe compatible. YouTube and Facebook Live just allow you to stream perhaps a live broadcast that you're doing. However, if you are just streaming a video that you've uploaded, we recommend just uploading it as a video into your account, because then you'll save local bandwidth as opposed to streaming. Text ticker, QR code, text slideshow, an RSS feed all allow you to put those on the page. UDP streaming is specific to bright sign units at this stage, but it just allows you to take a UDP stream from an IPTV camera and display it on the screen. The last one down here is really interesting. We've deployed this recently as Google Sheets integration. Now the integration just allows you to create your own Google Sheet in the back end and dynamically link those through to fields on your design. Now let's take a look at how the Google Sheets integration actually works. So if we go back to the dashboard here, we can see our burger special design is right here available. If I click on this, now we can start to connect this to a Google Sheet. So in here we've got this pricing field, but we want to make that dynamic so we don't have to continually go back into the design to make changes at all times. So the first thing we'll do is go into our dynamic widgets, select on the Google Sheet, and now we can start entering the information that we need. So during this process, you'll click on the config and then you'll see our support page. Just follow the steps in there to get your own Google Sheets account set up, as well as your API key and how to find the sheet ID. But once those two are connected, we can now start to pull through that dynamic data. So in here, we've got a sheet, and this allows us to start entering the data. So you see some examples down here. We've got our menu board with a full menu layout in here, all the pricing and so on. So you can build as many sheets as you want, as many tabs as you want. But let's just call this one a burger special, and we'll say this is $19. So we'll call this one burger special. And in here, we come back and we say, okay, what is the sheet name? We call it burger special. And we'll notice immediately this pulls through the first field. So column A, row 1, which matches column A and row 1 back here. We want this to be the pricing field instead. So we update this column to be B, pull through, and now that's $19. So in here we've got this static text field, but we actually want to make it a dynamic one. So we change the font over here, and we say this is 290, for example. We've got our font as Lobster, which is one of the Google fonts. And now you can see that these two fields are identical, except one is dynamically linked. We could do the same, and we could copy and paste it and change it back to A and now make this dynamically linked as well. It really just depends on exactly what you need to do and how many of your fields you want to be dynamic in this case. So if we make that 190, for example, you can see how easy it would be to make changes to your content in real time. So feel free to play around with that Google Sheets, because we find it is a very handy widget for a lot of customers, especially with menu boards or just information that they want to change. The added benefit of using Google Sheets is you can actually share this sheet with different people, make it read-only, or just make it modifiable to specific people, so they can update their menu in here without actually having to go into Fusion, edit the design, and make changes through the platform. So very, very handy. You can also obviously link this to multiple designs. So if you had multiple layouts, one landscape, one portrait, or just different variations, you could create multiple variations and have them all linked to that field, and then not have to worry about changing multiple designs all the time. They're always going to be changed from your one single source. So the next thing I want to showcase is our overlays. So this is a very handy feature to create your own personal widgets that will just sit on top of any of the content that we put within a playlist. So how do we create one? Under the design section on the left, we can create a new design from scratch. In the type dropdown, we can change this to overlay, and we'll just say top right overlay as the name. Create a new blank design, create, and now you'll notice the first thing that you see is this checker plate. So what this means is it's actually a transparent background. So anything that you put on top of this will sit on top of the content within your playlist. So from here, what we can do is maybe add in a shape, a little circle, for example, and we can put that into the top right-hand corner. We can change the color, and then we can add in a clock. So the clock widget now will sit up the top, and it will put through the device time, and maybe we wanted to put the date as well, and we can fully customize this as well if we need to. But just for the purposes of this example, we're just going to create a little widget that sits in the top right hand corner, and this will sit on top of the playlist that we go through in a minute. So we'll save this top right overlay, and then we'll put this into our overlays folder which we've created. Press save, and then we'll show how this comes into play. Obviously you can add as many different widgets as you want. Just keep in mind, keep this so that your content doesn't get covered up by your widget. So have a bit of a play around, but use this because it's a really good resource. Next is our manage section. So the manage section just allows you to upload your own media, create playlists, and add websites, and manage all your designs. So the manage section is just a collection of folders that you can create. So you can add a folder up over here, and you can create subfolders, rename and delete folders as needed. You can search at the top and filter between media, playlists, or schedules. And keep in mind, you can toggle any of these on just to filter the content within your manage section if you're finding something specific. Uploading media is very, very straightforward. You can either drag it in from your computer directly into the folder that you're currently looking at. So if you wanted to put it in the components, you could drag it into here, or you can use the add button at the top right hand corner. So we have a bunch of options, and I'll go through these individually. Images and videos allow you to upload the same thing. If you don't want to drag it into the folder, you can browse onto your computer. We support JPEGs and PNGs for images, as well as MP4 video files. Keep in mind that your resolution is going to impact the playback on your screen. Even though some devices are 4K compatible, we recommend always keeping your resolution at 1920 by 1080 just to avoid any playback issues. By all means, feel free to use 4K and test to see whether your device does support it well, but we just had a lot of customers report back that even though the device is 4K, it tends to have some stuttering or playback issues. So always try to keep it at 1080p if you are experiencing issues. So once you've uploaded your content, it will appear into the media library over here. We couldn't come back up and add in a new website. So the website URL just allows you to put in a website which will display on your screen in full screen. One note is it does require itself to be able to be embedded within an iframe, and it shouldn't have things like credentials, so it must be a public website in order to get the best results. Our designs allow you to add one of the designs, and this just takes you back to the design editor. And our zone editor is just a feature that we can toggle on if you're using something like a multi-screen menu board with a single media player or an LED and you want to constrain the content, but I'll go through that shortly. Down the bottom, you'll see that you can also create a playlist and create a schedule, and this is where you can really start to pull your content together. On the far right in the top right hand corner, we have a gear icon, and this just sets the default settings when you're adding content into a playlist. So media fit settings just changes how your images and videos will be scaled and whether it's a fit, fill, and stretch. Media duration for images, websites, and designs. Essentially, you can change it from 3 seconds to 10 seconds in here, and that will always put that as your default duration, which you can change later. And then template scaling just allows you to update how templates are scaled depending on whether you have a 4K or a 1080p device. Hit save, and then those will always be your default settings. You can have your column editor as well. So clicking on this allows you to show and hide any of these columns in here. So say you don't ever want to see the usage or the file type, you can always customize this yourself. Clicking on files allows you to move them between different folders as well as delete the file. And you can see there's a bunch of information in these columns that'll help you identify what the media is. So this is a video file. It's been gone through our compression process to make sure it's suitable for most devices, when it was last updated, the duration, the resolution, and the file size, whether the file is currently in use. So this is just really handy to make sure you know whether the media file can actually be deleted, because it's currently within these playlists or deployed to these screens. If you delete it, it will be removed from those. Hovering over will give you a preview of the content, and on the far right you have the option to rename, remove, replace a file, download and delete. So basic account management and just allowing you to organize your content. Now when it comes to your folder structure, there's really no hard and fast rule, it's just whatever makes sense for you. Some customers will just leave it in a single media folder and then use the search and the filter. Others will split it out into components of designs and overlays as well as playlists and schedules. You could do it based on your specific promotion or the content and just keep it all together. And because each folder can contain images, videos, as well as playlists and schedules, you're not really constrained in any way. It just comes down to whatever suits you. So I'm going to quickly show you how the zone editor works. So the zone editor is something that we can add to your account if you require it, and it isn't something that's available to everyone. So the zone editor was originally designed for multi-screen deployments where you have a single media player that's being deployed out to multiple screens. The benefit of the zone editor is we can add in media and playlists separately to designate what content you want on each screen. So putting this playlist on the far right screen, for example, putting this playlist on the middle screen and this playlist on the left screen, when using a multi-screen device will ensure that your content is playing on the correct screens. These days this is a bit outdated because we do have our synchronization feature, but it is also useful for LED solutions where they haven't set the custom resolution on the device, because you could put in a specific media file, for example, and then place it in the top right hand corner at the exact dimensions of your LED. Keep in mind that we can set a custom resolution on the application, so again this is kind of used in very specific situations. Another use case for this could be we could add media to the background, for example, in here, and then we could put a playlist in, embed that playlist in a certain zone, and then we can use our permission system to provide access to only that one playlist. So then you could give that control to somebody to update only one portion of your screen. So the zone editor is something that's a little bit outdated now, but it is awfully useful in those situations where you do have multi-screens or LEDs. Alright, now let's create a playlist. So I'm going to click on my playlist folder over here, and you can see we've already created a bunch, but let's create a brand new one, let's say for a menu board. So let's click on add in the top right hand corner and click on playlists, and now we give it a name. Now there's no limits on what the name could be, but really it just comes down to something that you can easily identify as the type of content that's in that playlist or the content being deployed to a screen. So a good example could be menu screen, for example. Let's create that playlist, and then once we're in, we can see that we have this blank canvas. So menu screen at the top can be renamed, or you can open up the folder in the manage section to see where it is. And at the top we have a bunch of options. We can add, and this can be media or playlists. We can add an overlay, which we created in the designer earlier. We can preview all the content, and we can save and publish this playlist. Obviously we can't do that yet because we haven't added content, so let's get that kind of started. You'll see that we have two tabs below, so the content view and the tagging view. So there's a few features in this playlist section that I'll showcase that have different license requirements. Basic is obviously our simplest one, but it doesn't come with the scheduling or the show hide feature. And then our pro features are the tagging view, which is really handy if you've got a lot of screens where you're deploying this content to. First and foremost, let's add some media. So from here we can add and then say media, and this is just going to give us a list of all of the content that we've uploaded to our account at any point. You'll notice we have a search at the top as well as a folder selector, so if you want to go to a specific folder, you can sort by the oldest to newest or newest to oldest. And in here we can actually upload content directly from our computer while we're in the playlist. So this just saves you having to go back to the manage section, find the folder, upload your content, find your playlist and come back. You could just do this all on the fly by selecting a folder up here, uploading your content, and then it's added into the manage section as well as your playlist. But let's just start building some content. So we add our burger special, which we created earlier, and then we come down and we want to add a video file, some other promotions and so on. So in here, you'll see that as this builds in behind it, the playlist is being created. So what can you do with this content? Well, you can search for different files at the top. So if you want to see what my burger special is, you can drag and reorder the content, because this playlist starts at the top, works its way to the bottom, and just rotates through it all day, every day. So basic license holders, this is exactly the functionality you'll get. You can change the order, you can add new files in, you can change the duration if it's an image or a website or a design that doesn't have a video file in it. You can change the fit, fill, and stretch, and you can duplicate. So on the far right, we have some options. We can delete, which just essentially removes this file from the playlist, but it doesn't delete it from the actual menu section. We can duplicate, which puts this file in multiple times, which then maybe we can drag down and have it play within that playlist. Hide content is only available to advanced and pro license, but basically this just prevents this content from displaying until you re-enable it. So it's just a handy feature to turn it off temporarily. Another advanced feature is content level scheduling. So at the media item level, I can say this piece of content I only want to appear on certain days. So clicking on this, we can now add a schedule which says only on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays do I want this piece of content to be added in and visible. You can specify a start and end time and say, okay, I actually want this to start at 10 a.m. and go until, let's go to 3 p.m. And we can even specify a start and end date. So let's say this was a promo only for the month of September. I can come in and say the start date is September and the end date is the 30th of September. So now only between only in the month of September, between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays will this piece of content appear. You can also add multiple schedules. So say you wanted something else on a Monday in the afternoon, and you can keep going and really refine exactly when that piece of content will appear. Hit apply and exit, and now you'll see that this has been activated and this piece of content gets added into the rotation. So that's one really important thing to note, is all of this other content isn't scheduled, so therefore it's going to be playing all the time. The purpose of scheduling is to limit the window in which that content appears, but it won't exclusively play. If you want exclusive, then we'll have to look at the schedules, which will be coming up shortly with our advanced license as well. Other features on the far right is replace. So let's say you had a different version of this video, you could replace the content, and then you could also download it or open the folder where that file exists. There's one other feature that I haven't really mentioned, and that is the playlists. So I've just added a whole bunch of media, which are just individual media items, but if we go back, we can actually click on the add modal and then go down and select a playlist. So let's say we also had some content that we wanted to play everywhere. This could be our standard promotion, for example. In here, I would put this in. One warning that just popped up was essentially you can't have nested playlists within nested playlists. So it is important to note only the content within here. Otherwise, if there's a playlist embedded within this one, it will be ignored. But now this playlist has been added, if I middle click on that and open it up in a new window, you'll see this content in here is a different subset of content, and it contains its own images and videos, and here is that nested playlist which would be ignored. So if I go back to my playlist in here, what we have is the same feature set that we would have around media. So I could put a tag rule on this, I could content level schedule it, I can show and hide, I can duplicate. The benefit of doing this is you can always contain your content into a specific playlist and just make sure it's always added to multiple playlists if you need to. So keep that in mind. Amazing. So now what we can do at the top is we can start to see the overlays and the preview feature. So if I click on this and press preview, because I've got the tagging system enabled, I can actually preview it for a specific screen if I want to, or I could just preview all the content and it just ignores all the tag rules. So this is just my dummy content that I've created for the designs, for the tagging purposes. But one thing that we can check is our overlay. So this preview, as you saw, it basically has a landscape and a portrait option depending on your orientation. And as you cycle through, it's going to show you what that content is going to look like. If I click on this overlay tab, and remember you have to have an advanced license for this because it requires the designer, click on this, I can select my top right overlay, press set overlay, and now when I preview, you'll notice in the top right we have that little red widget that we created with the time and the date. Now as I cycle through, that is going to stay on top of all of my content. So it's a really handy way to create a widget that is always appearing on top of your media. Great, so that's the overview of the playlist, but now we need to get it to our screens. So in the top right, the final step is save and publish. So save and publish now, because I've pre-assigned some of these screens, it's going to say, yep, I'm about to publish it to all of these screens, and it's going to override any of the existing content that's on there. If, for example, we didn't have these screens here, we could now use this drop down to add them ourselves. So this is a handy way if you want to create a playlist quickly, you can immediately assign it to any of the screens on your network. Keep in mind, however, this offline status is really, really important. You can see that one of these screens is currently online, this one's been offline for 8 months, and this one's been off for a day. Now, it's not uncommon to see that a device has been offline for a day. It could be that it has a scheduled on-off time on the screen, so it's going to turn off at 5 p.m. and then maybe turn on the next morning. But if it is offline for something like 8 months, you may want to get in touch with the store or your reseller just to see what's going on, because yeah, it's obviously not going to receive that content until it comes back online. So you can add screen groups as well, and I'll talk about this when we get to the deploy section, but a screen group basically just contains any number of screens that you want to add to it, and you can update them all at the same time. So even though these screens are offline, when I hit save and publish, I am going to get a warning saying, hey, these 2 screens are offline. I can still publish this playlist and override the content, but obviously it's not going to download until we have a connection back to those devices. So from here, I'm going to save and publish, and within about 40 seconds, if that device is online, it's going to recognize that it needs new content, download it, and then start playing it. The next thing we can do is create a schedule. So schedules are available with our advanced and pro licenses. If we go to the manage section, we can click on a folder. Let's use our schedules folder, click on add, and then go down to the bottom under create and click a schedule. Again, with the naming convention, just give it a name that makes sense to you. So we'll go menu screen schedule in this case, create a schedule, and now we're greeted with this calendar view. So this is where we can choose exclusive playlists that we want to play at certain times of the day. Obviously we've created a playlist, and if we deploy that playlist to a specific screen, it's going to just play that content all day, every day. Even though it has content level scheduling, that content is added into the rotation when that time happens. But the schedule, the first thing that we can do is set a default playlist up in the top. Now this default playlist allows us to say, well, if nothing else has been scheduled, let's play this content. So I'm going to put our promotion content on, set that, and now it's going to gray out the area everywhere and say, okay, if nothing else is added, play this content. So this is a really handy way to just make sure it always plays some content after your events end. Then from there, we can see we have the date at the top, each of the days, and we can cycle through the weeks for each of our different schedules. So let's say we want to add some content to Thursday, for example. I can just drag down here. It's going to select Thursday. I can specify I actually want this to be end of the day or select a specific time. Then I choose the playlist. So the playlist in here needs to be created before we create the schedule. But let's say I have this Thursday playlist, which I've created, which contains the content that I want to play on Thursday. We can add that playlist in here. Only on Thursdays, all day in here, or I can specify a time frame, and then I can specify a start date. So by default, it's only going to do the one date that you've dragged over, but in here I could say forever, which means there's no end time, and it's just going to play every single Thursday until I change the schedule. Add that to the schedule, and now this is scheduled in. So as I cycle through the weeks, you'll see every Thursday this content is going to play. You can drag it over a specific time frame, and let's just say we want to run a morning content. Maybe it's on Fridays. You can update that to be Saturday, Sundays, and so on. And then we can say that's forever, add that to the schedule, and now you can see the power of pre-scheduling your content to exclusively play it. One thing to note is if you don't have a default playlist set, so if we remove this from here, there's no default playlist. As soon as this morning playlist activates, it's going to play it until 8:15, but at the end of it, it's actually not going to change back to nothing. And this is just to ensure that your screen doesn't play no content at all. So it's going to continue to play your morning schedule until it hits the next event, which in this case would be Thursday. So always make sure that you've got a default playlist set if you don't want that to happen, but it is a nice feature if you just want to continue to play that content until the next little event. If you want to ever edit this, you can. So edit the scheduled event. I can come in here and make any changes as normal. Or if you want to see the content that's within that playlist, I can actually click on this and it will open it up in a new tab and allow me to see the content and make changes within that playlist. One really handy thing is that you can actually still use the content level scheduling within this playlist as well. So even though it's activating this Thursday playlist here, you could say Thursday at 1 p.m. I want to play this, and 2 p.m. I want to play that. And get really granular with exactly what's playing on that Thursday playlist. So try to use both of those features at the same time and see how you go. Then when you're ready, you can press save and publish, and up the top right hand corner you can see we have the same modal that we had for our playlist section, and we can assign it to specific screens. So I can select some of the screens on the account here, and you'll notice that it's going to show me that it's currently playing a playlist. So we're going to override that playlist with this schedule, because the schedule contains multiple playlists and it's controlling when those playlists will play. So if you've created a playlist and that's deployed to the screen, then you create your schedule, you need to use the schedule to override it. Hit save and publish. It's going to give me the same warning about my screens being offline. I'm aware of that, so I'm going to hit save and publish, and then as soon as those screens come back online, that content is going to update on the screens, and away you go. Next, we're going to take a look at the final section within Fusion Signage, the deploy section. This is where you can add new screens and manage any of the screens or devices that you have connected to your account and your network. Getting a new screen on is quite simple. You just click on Add Screen in the top right hand corner. This may also be done by your reseller, but if you need to, you can definitely add one in yourself. For an example, we can use our player.fusionsignage.com.au application, where you can use it directly in the browser. This is great if you're just using it as a trial account, giving you the ability to test your content before you actually get your screens. Each of our applications comes with its own 6-digit identity code. So this is the code that you'll see right here, as well as it'll show you the time and date and a few other pieces of information. Taking that code, you just go back into your deploy section under the add screen, type that code in and give it a name. So new screen. From there, you'll select any of the available licenses. So if it's a trial account, you'll have a trial license there. And if you've purchased license already, they'll be available to select. And then you choose your device time zone. This is just used for the screen reporting in terms of the online and offline notifications. So it doesn't actually update the device itself. So make sure your device time is set correctly on the device. Once I've added that screen, it gets added into my list under the individual tab. So you can see that there's a bunch of information. The screen name, which if I click on it, it gives me a bunch of information, and I can also rename my screen, shows me the identity, the license it's assigned to, as well as some other information that we use for troubleshooting and supporting. Down the bottom, you have some options to set offline notifications, set up your tags if you're using the Pro license, as well as a proof of play report. You can preview the content, which just shows you a preview of what is displaying on that screen as if it was running the playlist in the playlist section. So closing out of that, you can see some other information here. So this teal box under this column will show you the content that's either playing or allow you to assign some content to it. So if I click on this teal box, it gives you the option to select from your playlists and your schedules at the top, keeping in mind schedules do require an advanced license to use. And in here, I can come through and say, okay, I'd like my promotion content to be played. Likewise, you can search for all your playlists. If you want to create a new playlist, you can do that from here. And in here, you could edit the playlist that you're about to select and open it in its folder in the manage section. So selecting this content, I can now submit this content, and then that promotion will be sent to the screen within about a minute. Once it's been assigned, you now have the option to edit the playlist directly or replace it or show it in the folder. So it's just a quick access to allow you to quickly get your content changed on that screen if you need to. Now, if you're using tags, this new tags column will allow you to see the tags as well as change any of the tags and add tags on the fly if you need to. So this is really handy if you're making changes. The notification section is an advanced feature that just allows you to receive an email when your device goes offline. So from here, you can either select it on an individual screen, or you can select all of the screens that you want to apply this to and enable it here. So what this means is that if this is enabled, if the screen turns offline or is shown as offline in our servers for 15 minutes, then that will send you an email. This is where the time zone is really, really important because we don't know where the device specifically is. We just need this time zone to be accurate. Down the bottom, you have an option as well to set notification times. This just means that if the device is only supposed to be on between the days of Monday to Friday, say 8 AM till 5 PM, you can specify that here so that if it turns off within that time frame, you receive the email. But if it's on a Saturday when it's meant to be off, you won't receive it. So it just allows you to be a little bit more accurate with your timings. From there, you can save, and then those will override any existing notifications that you've set up, and then that will be showing as enabled. Next, you can come into your status. Now, what this is going to show you is whether you have your devices online or offline. So if I click on this screen here, it's going to give us a 14-day history of what the device has been doing. So it might take a second to pull that information from the device itself, but once it's up, you'll see that it appears as a histogram. So what we want to see is this solid green line in here. Any of these dips, it might have been temporarily off, or it might have shut down over the weekend, or it might have had a power outage. So this just gives you some insights into what the device has been doing. And normally if this is really, really spiky, it probably means that you have an issue with your Wi-Fi connection as well. Otherwise, the status will tell you how long it's been offline. So in here, this one says it's been offline for 8 months. So there's probably something going on with that device. And keeping in mind that even though the internet connection may not be connected and it may not be showing as online, the content may still be playing on that screen. So just get in touch with your store or your location just to see what's going on. The next column over shows you your license type. I'm using demo licenses on here, but this will say whether you have advanced, basic, or pro licenses. Your expiry and your remaining duration just shows how long is left on the license that's assigned to your screen, and then when the content was last updated. So in this situation, the content on the screen was last updated 2 minutes ago, and if I bring back that little player, you'll see that that content has updated on my screen using that same identity. The application version on the far right just helps us from a support point of view to know whether you're using the latest version of our application, and this could just mean that there's different bugs or fixes that we've put out that may help you, so we can push different versions if needed. Clicking on a screen gives you a few options. You can run a proof of play report if you're running on our Pro, or you can set up your offline notifications for multiple in this way as well, and you can even delete screens. Now we highly recommend not deleting your screen unless you know what you're doing, because if you delete it then it's not going to come back and you need to record the identity. If that happens, we can get you the identity again, but just please note, deleting your screen out of here does not remove the content on the screen. One feature under the screen name, however, is the replace identity. So let's say you've replaced your screen and you just want to keep the same information within that account. So you can actually install our application on the new screen, get the new identity, click here and then replace it, and that'll just keep everything the same. It makes it nice and easy if you need to swap out your hardware for whatever reason. Columns on the right just allows you to turn on and off any of the columns that you may or may not want to see, and it just gives you some freedom to choose what is being displayed. Now at the top we have 3 tabs: individual, grouped, and synced. Now this will also depend on your license type. As you can see, grouped and synced do require an advanced license, but grouping just allows you to create a screen group and put any number of screens into that group to update them all at the same time. So at the moment I have one called menu screens, and in here I've got menu screen 1, 2, and 3. Now, because the content on this screen is currently playing Thursday, if I want to change this, I can replace it. And let's say I want to put my menu screen on, I would press submit, and now this content is going to be updated on all of these screens simultaneously. Obviously, this isn't ideal if these have 3 different screens with different content on it, because this is now going to play the same content on all screens. So screen groups are really just useful if you have a lot of screens with the same content, unless of course you're using our tagging system, which I'll showcase as a bit of an example later. You can easily create a new group up here. Just click on this and give it a group name, new group for example, and then in here you can rename or create subgroups and keep going down the chain. Adding screens in is quite simple, so I can tick all of the screens in here. For example, I'm going to select move to, where I can either move it back to an individual, group, or sync group. If I want to change it to a different group, I can move it here and swap them around. Likewise, I can do this in the individual section as well. If I wanted to move my new screen, I can do the same and move it to a group, put that in my menu screens, for example, and keep moving them around. So very, very versatile in terms of exactly where you want to put your groups. Now, one change that we are going to be making very soon is the ability to not only have exclusive content playing on here, but being able to set it so that it is an additive process. So one of the big issues that we found with screen groups is that not a lot of customers will have basically 10 to 15 screens all playing the same, and if they do, they tend to leave it in the individual section with a single playlist on it and then just update the content within that playlist. So the screen groups haven't been utilized the way that we thought they would, so instead we're going to be making a change that says all of our screens will exist in the individual section, and they will be having the content that appears here as you would normally expect. So I can assign a playlist or a schedule. Then I could add a group and then add screens to this group, which would then have its own playlist assigned specifically to the group, which would allow them to add content to the screens. So it just makes it more versatile, so you could have screens in multiple groups, and one for landscape, one for promo, for example, and put pieces of content on those groups and manage them individually, freely moving screens as needed. So that's going to be coming out later in 2024, and we'll update the video when that happens. The final section over here is synced groups. Now this is a new feature that we're still currently testing, but it is available if you'd like to access it. So basically, sync groups allow you to synchronize content between multiple players, which hasn't been available within Fusion Signage previously. So what we would do here is we would create a new sync group, and let's just call this menu boards again. Now the synchronization server is either going to use Fusion Signage servers, which are based in AWS in Sydney, or you can host your own if you want to turn on the application. In the settings, you have the option to set it so that you are hosting your own locally. We always recommend using Fusion servers first, but if you do experience a bit of lag, maybe it's on Wi-Fi or you're a bit further away from Sydney, you may be experiencing a little bit of latency, you can always experiment with the host my own. Press save and continue, and now this creates a group. And now what we could do is we could move all of our menu boards into a sync group. So when I do that now the content is in here, ready to go. And now you'll notice that we have the ability to assign individual playlists to each of these screens. When we're talking about sync groups, if I come back over to our manage section, what we would do in this situation is we would have a menu screen playlist. Let's go screen 1. And what we have to make sure in our playlist is that all of the content in here is the same length and in the same order. So let's say we wanted these 3 files to play, and we wanted them to play for 10 seconds each, and we wanted them to be synchronized across the other screens. I would save this content here, and then when I would create my second playlist, which would be called screen 2, and then I add 3 different files, for example. They're all 10 seconds, and they're all start to top to bottom, exactly the order that I want them to appear in. I would then do the same for screen 3. Add my 3 files, and obviously when you create your content, you can have it so that this is synchronizing across all 3, so it makes it look like the 3 screens are all playing at the same time. Then under your sync group over here for menu board screen 1, I would select screen 1. Menu board screen 2, I would select screen 2, and menu board screen 3, I would select screen 3. So while these screens are online, these 3 different playlists will now synchronize, and then they will all be playing their files 10 seconds at a time, one after the other in perfect unison. Have a play around with this and see whether it's of use to you if you want to get that menu board look, or even not even necessarily menu boards, just making sure that your content is being synchronized across all of the screens in your store. Under the deploy section as well, we do have the search option and the tags option. So if you want to be able to see content or screens based on your tags, again, this is a pro feature, so you can filter this by any of the screens that may be having this tag. Just gives you a way to organize your screens in a nice, neat little way. In terms of our applications as well, we do have the ability to install our applications on pretty much any operating system. If we go to our support site, which is available under your initials, go to our help guide here, takes you over to our support site, and then we have our installation guides here. So you see all of the applications and the operating systems that we support. So talk to your reseller or whoever your IT department is about the devices that you're using, and then you can come here to define the correct installation guide. The tagging system is something that's available under our Pro license. So let's say you had this playlist and you wanted to save and publish it and deploy it to multiple screens. So it's fine if you've got this content units across multiple and they're all playing identical content, but as soon as you want to have different variations, you're going to have to create a separate playlist, one for menu board screen 1, screen 2, screen 3, and manage 3 playlists or multiple playlists separately. Now, while this isn't too much of a problem if you've got only a few screens, if you start getting up to hundreds or even thousands of screens, it could become very, very problematic. So the tagging view reduces that pain by allowing you to set tag rules on each piece of content, which correspond to tags set on individual screens. So this tag rule builder up here now gives you a different interface, which shows you the screens. So because I haven't actually saved this or published it to any screens, this is going to be empty, but I could simulate exactly what's going to happen using the assign screens. So over here, we can click on assign screens, and then we can go down and say, let's add in a bunch of these screens. So from here, we can see we also have screen groups if we want to, and in here now we have a bunch of screens which have already got their tags set. I'll show you later in a bit more detailed on how to get tags on the screens in a bit better, but if I click on the screen name, it has this tags option, which now shows me all of the tags, and these can be completely customized to your needs. You can just type in a new tag and then press enter, and then that tag will be assigned to this screen. So assuming you've set up all your tags, and if you hover over the screens on the right, you'll see the tags that apply to each of those screens, we can now come in and start to refine down exactly the content that's in here. So let's say we want to remove some of this, and I'll give you a couple of examples of how this content could work. Add in some new media from our tagging folder, and away we go. So in here, I have conveniently named all of these designs just to make it a little bit easier. So the first one is called all. Now all is just something that I want to play on every one of my screens, so I don't actually want to limit this at all. So in this case, I wouldn't build a tag rule, I just leave it empty because the tags are going to limit the number of screens that it appears on. A simple example I'll use is Queensland. So as I build this tag rule, it's going to bring up our tag rule builder, show the matching screens on the far right over here, and then we can start to say, what is my rule? So this content will be shown on the screens if the following conditions are true. If the screen includes all of these tags, at least one of these tags, excludes all of these tags, or excludes at least one of these tags, then the rule will be met. So in this case, I want the screen to include Queensland. So if I type it in, Queensland, it'll now show me the screens that match this tag rule, and I press apply and exit. So now this piece of content will only appear if a screen has a matching tag called Queensland, and if I click on the matches, you'll see here's the 2 screens that applies to. We can even get fancier, so now we've got multiple rules, so New South Wales or Queensland as well as a promo tag. So in here the screen must include the promo tag, as well as it could be at least one of New South Wales or Queensland. So now it's going to apply to multiple screens as long as it has New South Wales and promo and Queensland and promo. Apply and exit, and now you're refining that down. Another option is to not have a specific tag. So if the screen must exclude the tag called promo. So now it won't appear on any screen that has the tag promo. Likewise, you could do similar things with landscape and portrait orientation. So if you had a piece of content that must have the landscape tag, now you can have different content sets between landscape and portrait within the same playlist and manage it all separately. You can see how powerful this is and making sure that the content is being distributed to the correct screens, because you could have one playlist that manages 1,000 screens across the entire network. On the far right, you'll see the matches. So if you want to see exactly what's going to be playing on a specific screen, you can see this New South Wales promo. If I click on this, it will refine down the content that's appearing on here, and I can see, yep, that matches all my rules. I'm happy with that, and so on. So a really handy way to organize your content and manage it in different ways. Clicking on settings, you'll see that tagging here is available for any of our pro license users, just as a quick way to easily manage any of the tagging on any of our screens. So within this section, we could create a brand new tag or see the usage of a specific tag. And then in here under the screens on the right, I can see all of the screens and the tags that impact them. So let's say we wanted to add a new tag to every screen on here. We can come in, click on all the screens, press add tag, and we can say brand over here. So we're going to add a brand tag to it. In here, I want to add that one tag to all the screens. You'll see it's now added that one brand tag. Likewise, we can do the same and remove it. So if I want to remove a specific tag, I could come in and remove the brand tag, and that would likewise remove it. So it's really handy to be able to search if you've got existing screens on the account to say all of my Queensland screens, I could tick this and add a specific one in, and also filter by any of the existing tags on here. One thing to note is that you can't delete a tag if it's currently in use, so you do need to remove it from all of your screens, and then over here I can now delete this tag and away it goes. The downside, I wouldn't say it's a downside, but one of the considerations is if you've built any tag rules using any of this in the playlist section, then those tag rules are going to be maintained. So we're not deleting any of the tag rules, it would just make it ineffective. So if I was to delete this landscape tag and it's currently in use in a bunch of playlists, just note that when you do that, those tag rules are going to stay, but it may not now apply to any of the screens. So it could ruin your tag rules. So be considerate of that, and that's why we kind of make sure we remove the tags first before making any of the changes in here. Within Fusion Signage, we also have a feature called our approval system for our pro license users, which can be toggled on if you need it. The reason it isn't available just by standard is because it does fundamentally change how the account works in terms of getting content to your screen. So the approval system allows users with a approver permission level to gatekeep the content being uploaded by people without. So if you do have a bunch of users that maybe you want to manage the content on the screens, but then you want somebody else to check it before it actually appears on the screens, the approval system is for you. So the way that it works is under the manage section, if a user without approver status comes in and they try to upload some new content, it will upload that content as per normal, but then you'll notice down here under this column it says pending approval. This is because the content hasn't yet been approved, but the good thing is when they're creating their playlists, they can still add this content in pending approval with any content that is also already approved and publish it to a screen as per normal. So if this is published like this, the content isn't actually sent until this approval has actually happened. So how does it get approved? Well, under the permission system, under settings and permission groups, we do need the ability to have a marketing group or some other approver status. We create a new one, for example, called approvers. We would come in and say, have media approver status, and you can set any other permissions that they also require. When you add users to this group, they will then receive an email notification when new content is set to be approved, and then they can come into this new tab that's on the left and see the content ready to go. So in here you have the option to approve it, delete it, see the file name, who uploaded it, where it's currently been deployed into the manage section, and then preview the content on the far right. If you're happy with it, you can come in and approve it, and then as soon as that happens, the tab at the top will say, here's all the content that has been recently approved, which you can then delete if needed, if it's done by mistake, for example. Under the manage section now, this piece of content will now be sitting as approved, and then in that example playlist, you'll see it has also been approved. So this content would automatically be sent to the screens as soon as that status changes to approved. Another feature for our Pro users is single sign-on. So if you have this capability using Azure Active Directory, we can toggle on single sign-on in order for you to manage your users and push your users over from Active Directory instead of creating them in our backend. In here, you'll find all the setup procedures as well as the documentation on our support site to connect your system to SAML, and then use Skim to push your users across. It also creates the ability to put users into specific user groups so that you can automatically push that from your Active Directory and assign them to the correct places as needed. Another feature available under our Pro license is our location system. This again isn't toggled on by default, as it does fundamentally change the way the platform works. The location system is used for larger organizations who have multiple stores or buildings or branches and perhaps want to give each of the users at these stores the ability to log in and only manage the screens that are on that site. Instead of creating multiple accounts or using our permission system and creating it as a granular level, the location system is really here to simplify that and provide managers with the ability to oversee the entire location structure while providing granular access down to the store level. So how does it work? Under the settings section in your portal, you go to locations at the top and you'll see two tabs, the location tiers and the location management. So the first step is under location tiers. It's to create and define your hierarchy. Now the reason we'd create this is so that you can create something custom for you. At the end of the day, the default location is really the only important one. So in here under default location, I could change this, for example, to be called stores, as this is the level where our screens and users are going to exist, as well as where they'll be putting their content, media and playlists and so on. In here we have a couple of default fields, including address, opening hours, tags, time zones. You can create your own custom fields and say it's a string and a number if you want to provide additional information at this location tier. As soon as I hit save, this is now going to be called the store location. So from here, we can then start to create new tiers. So create a new tier here, and let's say we want to build out this hierarchy so it defines it based on region. So let's go with state. Let's add in a state tier, and you can add in your own custom fields if you want to as well, but I'm just going to leave that blank for now. As well as state, we're going to go suburb, because this is how we define our structure. Put suburb in all the way down to the store level. So think of it like starting at the top, and you could go from brand to country to state, suburb, all the way down. It could be really defined based on how you want to lay out your structure. So we've got these three tiers here. The location, as I said, is the only important one. Let's go to location management. In here, we now start to add these tiers in. So the first thing we do is add a state, which we'll call Queensland. We could add another state called New South Wales, and then another state called Victoria, for example. So here are the three states that we would operate in. Then under each of these states, let's add the suburb. We'll go Brisbane, and then another suburb we would call Gold Coast. Under each of these suburbs, we would start to put in our different stores. So we would add a store, let's call it Brisbane Store 1, for example. You call it the store name, that would make sense to you. And then Brisbane Store 2. So there's the two stores that exist under our Brisbane location. Then we can add another one under Gold Coast. Gold Coast Store 1. And then we add a second store. You can add as many stores as you want, it just depends on how many you have. So now that this hierarchy has been started to be defined, this one with the icon is the location, and this is essentially where we would put our screens and our users. As we go through this, we can add screens. Existing screens on the account will come up as a list. Let's say we've got this Queensland screen here. This is one that we want to add. If you want to add a new screen, you can do that at the top as well, but because these are already on the account, we'll just move it in here. So I've added that screen in. This screen is now associated with that location, and then there's a new column here called the location. This is also available under our deploy section now, where you can see the location here. Clicking on it will take you through to the location for easy navigation. Next, we would want to add users. So in here, I can add the users that we're going to manage this screen. So as soon as I come in, I can press add user or add user group if you do have user groups set up as well. So add a user, you can either choose a new user or an existing user. Let's just choose a standard user that we've got assigned to this account and then add them in. So now that this standard user has been added here, when they log in, the only thing that they're going to see is anything at this structure down here, which I'll show you in a second. You'll notice we have this permission groups. So this gives us the ability to control exactly what they can do at this. So let's say we don't want them to have full access. We could say you only have edit access, so you can log in and see but not actually make any changes. This probably wouldn't be so useful if they're the ones responsible for managing it, but where this becomes very helpful is up the hierarchy. So these ones are at the Brisbane store, but let's say we wanted to move up to the Brisbane suburb. So let's say there's a suburb manager, or even up to the Queensland level, a Queensland manager. In here, I can add a user here, existing user, and we've got one set up for the Queensland manager. They now have oversight over everything in Queensland, but they only have edit access. So these people, when they log in, they'll see this whole hierarchy, be able to see it, view it, but not actually make any changes because I've set that permission group up. If I want to make changes to that permission group, I can come over into the edit only and say, well, you do have view, modify, and so on. So you've got complete control over exactly what users can do at each given level. The good thing is that this user could also, let's say, maybe they're the Queensland manager, but they also are part of the Brisbane store too, where they go in and work there as well. So I could add that same user to multiple places, existing user, Queensland manager. They could then have full access at this level. So instead of it being just the edit access, they could have the full access in that permission group. So you're not limited to just having users at one location. You could put them in pretty much everywhere. So once this has all been set up, it's obviously building the structure in here. You've defined all your screens and you've put all your screens in. What it actually is doing is it's also adding into the manage section a hierarchy. So this is why it fundamentally changes the layout of your structure in here in the manage section as well. So down here, you'll see we've got all of the existing folders that exist on this account, but now this has automatically built out the structure for Queensland, Brisbane, and then down to the Brisbane stores 1 and 2. So this means when a user logs in with access only at the Brisbane store 1, they will just see these ones here, which I can showcase here. So I've got a standard user set up. If I refresh that page, go into the manage section, this standard user, which is the one that I assigned just to the Brisbane store, they can see Queensland, Brisbane, and Brisbane store 1. Going back to the management user, I can now see everything because I have management user access. Any of these users, they need to be a standard user. As soon as you get given access as a management user, you're going to have full access over everything on that account. So set it in here and make sure any users who you want granular access to or only at a specific location are set to the standard user and not management, otherwise they will see everything. So think of management as your admin user across everything. As you saw under the deploy section, you can quickly see where all of these screens are being managed and structure it that way. So the location system can be used in conjunction with the approval system as well. Just keep in mind that any of the users added here will need to be put into any of the locations that they have user access for. You can make changes to this location hierarchy, as I mentioned, and you can move them around, rename anything that you need to do in here. But once this is kind of set up, you probably want to make the decision to use locations moving forward or not use it, because it does fundamentally change the way the account has been set up. If you'd like to use a location system, we're more than happy to enable it as long as you have the pro licenses on your account. Feel free to dive in and have a play around. The final thing to discuss is a few settings down the bottom left of the menu. So if you look down here and you click on your initials, you have some options to either access support, which will tell you your reseller information as well as our contact details, take you through to the help guide, which gives you a full rundown including this demonstration as well as written guides and installation guides, our quick start guide, which will just give you a quick overview of the platform as well as a very, very quick overview of the platform if you get stuck, and then our feedback. So if you have anything that you would love to give us feedback on, please follow that process. Clicking on settings, you'll see that you now have the option to update a bunch of your account and user details. So under the security tab, you can update your password here as well as set up multi-factor authentication just for additional account security. If you're a management user, you have a few extra features. First and foremost is your account details, where you can change your company name and details as well as your own user details in here. As a management user, you can add and manage any of the users that are on your account. There are no limits to the number of users you can have, so feel free to add as many people as you want. Adding a user in is quite simple. Just click on add, type in the email address, select your company, first and last name, and then you can specify the user access level. So the only difference between these two is a standard user doesn't have the ability to do the account and user management as well as permission groups. So they basically just have baseline access, but you can always set up permission groups to give them more or less access if you need to, which I'll show you in a second. You can turn this on and off to receive email notifications like expiry emails as well as other important emails from us, and you can specify a default password if you do need to log into the account straight away, but otherwise when you hit submit, they will receive an email from us in order to set up and finalize their account setup. Once they've done that process and set a password, they will then be logged into the account and then they can start doing and updating the content as per normal. In here under manage, you have the option to change any of their user levels, as well as you can copy the screen status notifications because each of the offline notifications is assigned to the user that sets them up. And then you can send a welcome email or delete the user as you need. Permission groups is something that I'll explain now. At the top under the tab, you can set up a permission group in here, which allows you to control what access that user has to an account. So if I create a new one saying I want to call this marketing, for example, we can say what global access does this permission group have over the account. So under the screen sections, we have a couple of different options: view, view modify, and create access. So under this, can they view the screens, or can they view and modify, and can they create new screens? So let's say we just want this marketing team to be able to see the screens, but not make any changes to them or create new ones. Screen groups as well, we have that same option where we can come in and turn those on and off. So turn that on if you're going to be using those. But marketing is probably going to need full access over the manage section, which is our media folders. So we can give them view and modify as well as create in here. Now, the approval access is something that's available under our Pro license, and it's a feature that's toggled on if you need it, but it gives you the ability to control what users can upload and requiring somebody to approve it prior to it being deployed to the screen. So we'll leave that off for now. Playlists as well, marketing's probably going to need full access over that, so we can go create and view and modify, and then under the schedules, yep, we'll give them full access to that. So at a global level now, this user group can see everything to do with an account at the high level. So if I save and continue, what we can see next is the granular level. So this is something where we can just give this group specific access over maybe a couple of screens or a couple of folders or a couple of playlists. Because on this previous level, I've already ticked view and modify over a few of these, it's already going to pre-populate all of this. So keep in mind that at the global level, if I turn that on, then they are going to have global access over everything that's been added into here. If we don't want that to happen, we leave the global section empty, and then we'd come in here and individually select this. So let's turn all of these off, for example, and say this one screen is the one that I want this group to be able to access. And maybe we want to refine this down as well and say off for these, and they only have access to maybe these folders where they have potentially full access to view and modify as well. So you do have granular as well as global capabilities. Just have a play around with that and see what works for you. So you can, when you create a new permission group, let's say specific store, in here, we can leave all of this empty. And if they do want the ability to set up new media, we can give them create access, create their own playlists, and create schedules. We can do that, but we leave everything else off here. Because as I mentioned, these are global. If I turn any of these on, they'll see everything. Go to the next page now, and I can say, perfect. Well, this one screen here, I do want you to have full access over because maybe this is at your store. And then down here, we could create a specific folder and say, okay, this folder here you have access to, and then you have access to, say, this playlist as well and this schedule. Because they do have create access as well, they can come in and create new files from here, which would only be applicable to them and anyone else who has management access. So permission groups are one way that we can control what users have access to what on an account at any given time. The next tab over, we have the player app, and now this gives us the ability to install all of our applications. So it's just a quick access for Android, WebOS, Tizen, Windows, Linux, BrightSign, and so on if you need to access any of our player apps in here as well as on our support site. Purchases will just show you any of the purchases made through our design section in the marketing section, and then tagging here is available for any of our Pro license users just as a quick way to easily manage any of the tagging on any of our screens. Thank you so much for joining us for our Fusion Signage demonstration. We hope that you got a full overview of the account and how everything works, as well as maybe learnt a few things if you're an existing user of Fusion. If at any point you would like another demonstration or one-on-one, please reach out to us. You can get in touch with us at support@fusionsignage.com.au or just use the banners and the modules in that portal. Thank you for being part of the Fusion Signage. We are a small business based up here in Brisbane, and we love every one of our customers. If you have any thoughts, feedback, or comments, please reach out to us. We would love to hear it, as all of our functionality is based around users and what they actually need to use within the platform. Thanks.